Welcome to the Leadership Levers Podcast. I'm your host, Will Gladhart, CMO at the Culture Think Tank. Our Culture Think Tank community is committed to advancing workplace culture and well-being. We are a virtual hub for authors, investors, leaders, managers, and employees worldwide to connect, engage in candid discussions, share ideas, and explore resources for cultivating a healthy work environment. We're here today to learn about the actions leaders have taken to address cultural change. Our guest today is Billy Ray Taylor, CEO and founder of Linked XL. Thanks for taking the time to join us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to engage with you.
Perfect. I thought we would start by having you share with our audience a bit about yourself, your organization, and your background.
Yes. Again, thanks for having me. Actually, I spent 30 years with the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. And so I actually started as a third shift supervisor. So think that once I had an electrical engineering degree, instead of going to engineering, I went to the back shift for about 6 to 12 years. And then end up leading North America. So worked my way up, understanding the people aspect of it. And that's what I really learned around just operational excellence. So after running North America operations, after 30 years, I retired. And so a lot of the practices we had built along the way, I was going to write a book, which I wrote called The Winning Link. But I had friends that were leading companies, No Printing Australia, their PPG. And so I actually would go in just to help them on a friend-to-friend basis. And what we start seeing is the tangible results on how do you define, align, and execute winning. And so from that, started a company called Linked XL, where I was the founder and CEO. And what we do now is architect operating. So we go in and help companies architect and build their own system using those core principles of operational excellence in Toyota.
Excellent. Well, I'm really looking forward to the discussion today. We'll be discussing 3 questions. As a warm-up to start our conversation, would you share why you believe a healthy culture is critical?
Well, I think culture is that sense of belonging. Right. And if you think of, you cannot outsource commitment. You cannot outsource accountability, right? You cannot outsource ownership. Culture brings all those things together. It governs those things. And so without those 3 components, your probability of success is very low, right? People don't feel committed. People don't feel engaged. They don't know what they own. And so I think culture, when you talk about it in itself, wow. And in some cases, you can't define it, but you can see it. You know what it looks like. You know what it feels like. Mm-hmm. But some people say, hey, we have a great culture on the bulletin board. But when you get in there, it's not that.
That's a great point. So what do you see? You've worked in a whole variety of industries. You work with a lot of different clients. What do you see as the biggest challenge leaders face when addressing cultural change within an organization? Or from your personal background, what were some of those challenges you faced?
I can give an example. When I was a young manager and I had the title, I had this conversation with a friend last night. I'm all of 27 and I'm going in this organization, right? And I'm talking change. We're going to do change. And I failed miserably. And why did I fail? Right. So one of the things that I see is a struggle that people struggle with is they go in and do change to the people, not with the people. Right? And what I've realized is in the successes I've had, not once did I have total resistance to change when it was done with them. They onboarded, they embraced it. But whenever I did change to them, it was an uphill battle. And so being specific, what is change with them versus to them? Right? It's when I do the strategy, I get your voice. I give them a structure. I get your voice. I don't always agree with everything you're bringing to the table, but we come to a consensus is this is the best way to go forward. And they still feel that they had a voice at the table. You asked the union leader. I remember inviting him into my strategic planning meeting. And I said to him, I need your help. Jim Wamsley, I need your help. And he says, in 30 years, no one ever asked me for help. They never asked my opinion. And so that itself broke down the wall of me fighting with union reps or me fighting with hourly people. It was our strategy.
I really like that. And you've kind of touched on our second question, but as you noted, asking someone for help, asking for their buy-in, asking for their commitment. What do you think leaders can do to address those cultural challenges they're facing? And, you gave an example, but if you have another, I'd love to hear one. Or, what have you done?
To create that culture, I think you have to have structure, right? And one of my friends, actually, he was leading one of my plants at one time. and he was a head financial person, and we moved him to a plant manager role. Very charismatic, very articulate. But what he did was he talked to me about structure, environment, and capability.
Mm.
He says, Billy, those for me, what I've seen in operations tend to be missing. Leaders don't tend to focus on structure, environment, and capability. Those components shape your culture. And so what I mean now, the example is structure. What's your daily management system? What's that system going to govern everything you do and foster repeatability, deliberate practice, where you're doing it repeatable? People see you walking in your gimbal walk. People see the strategy in action, right? Environment, right? It's that point where there's scoreboards where people own what they run, own what they do. Because sometimes accountability is a bad word. When I say to you, okay, William, you are accountable to deliver the results and meet this quota every day. You are accountable. You're like, oh. But if I say, listen, you own the results. What do you need from me? Now you kind of lean into that. And so that part of it, that environment that is psychologically safe to engage, and capability, I mean, that speaks for itself.
I love that you shared some of those specific components around the like you mentioned, that thread of buy-in, the accountability, helping people grasp ownership, but also helping them feel like they are really part of the journey and the next step. So are there any other thoughts or parting ideas you'd like to share with other leaders?
Yeah. And as a leader, it's not your opinion that really matters, more so the people that you're leading, right? I say, make people visible, they'll make you valuable, right? And so it's just like when I go into a hotel or I check into a hotel, I look at the badge and I call the person by their name when I leave and say, thank you, even for my key. Thank you. And when I come back, they say, hello, Billy. Hello, Mr. Taylor, welcome back. Mm-hmm. That's that mutual value proposition. But more importantly, though, think about it. Make people visible, they'll make you valuable. What do you crave more than anything in relationships, jobs, that you feel valued? Mm-hmm. And so leaders may think, I'm the leader, I don't have to speak. Well, I had the 2-foot rule. You get within 2 feet of me, I said hello every time. Awesome. If we make the Billy Taylor 2-foot rule, hi, that changed everything for me, especially in just being transparent. People put a lot of focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's really being authentic and comfortable who you are. And so when I went into these places as a minority leader, that in itself changed the way I showed up. When I started saying, hi, how are you doing? Hi, I'm Billy. Hey, good to see you. That make people visible. They would stop me. Mr. Taylor, can I show you this? Mr. Taylor, can I talk to you? And so that's important. Leaders, your presence is more important than your presence. Parents, your presence is more important than your presence. Okay. I
love that. I think, if many of us, not only in organizations, but in life, practice the Billy Taylor 2-foot rule, we probably would all be a lot happier. So, well, Billy, thank you for joining us on our Leadership Lovers podcast. I've enjoyed your insights.
Thank you for having me again. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on the Leadership Lovers podcast. You may find all our Leadership Lovers episodes in our Culture Think Tank community at www.culturethinktank.ai. Join the community at no charge and tune in weekly as we invite leaders to share their experience in strengthening culture one action at a time.